Today, we bring you a family story that's so unbelievable, it sounds like a work of fiction. A mother-in-law demanded an extra $50,000 before she would permit the wedding. Her son, my fiancé, sided with her and demanded I apologize. I just laughed, shed my simple clothes, and stepped into my Rolls-Royce. "You can't afford me," I told them. "My father is the governor, and your family doesn't have the class to even be in my world." My story by author Sarah Miller. Grace sat tucked away in the corner of a quiet Charleston cafe. Her canvas work coat, faintly smelling of archival dust and binding glue from the Historical Society's conservation lab, covered a simple blouse and jeans. Across from her, Kevin looked impeccable in a navy blue blazer and a crisp tie, his hair perfectly styled with expensive pomade. He kept glancing impatiently at his Rolex. He set his espresso down with a sharp click, criticizing Grace's casual attire. As a regional sales manager who mingled with the city's elite, he complained, being seen with someone so plainly dressed was embarrassing. Grace simply looked down at her worn-out sneakers. She wasn't ashamed, just tired. Her work as a conservator required her to be around chemicals and delicate, dusty artifacts. Elegant dresses and high heels were impractical. For her, substance always mattered more than style. "I just got off work," she explained calmly. "I didn't have time to change. We need to talk about the wedding plans, not my clothes." Kevin scoffed and got straight to the point. The wedding date was set for the third Saturday in October, but he claimed his capital was tied up in a coastal development project near Kiowa Island. He wanted her family to cover all the wedding expenses, from the five-star hotel venue to the limousine, as a way for Grace to share the burden. Grace was stunned. Her savings, painstakingly earned over years of restoring rare documents, were meant to renovate her grandmother's historic house and secure her own future, not to finance her fiancé's vanity. She looked up, her voice turning cold. "If my family pays for everything, what exactly is your family contributing? I never even asked for an expensive ring." Kevin's face tightened, his tone growing harsh. "Are you seriously nickel-and-diming me right now? I told you my cash is tied up, not that I don't have money. Once that property value spikes, I'll sell one lot and pay you back 10 times over. How can we have a future if my own wife can't support me when things are tight? Besides, it's just you and your father. What else are you saving for? Let's throw a magnificent wedding. It'll make you look good, won't it?" Grace fell silent. She knew Kevin's personality all too well. He was always painting grand pictures of multi-million-dollar real estate ventures, but in reality, he lived paycheck to paycheck, spending lavishly on designer clothes and expensive dinners to network. She had fallen for his initial charm and confident demeanor, but the deeper they got, the more his materialistic and calculating nature was exposed. "I have some savings, but that's my emergency fund. I can contribute a portion, but I can't cover the entire thing. If your funds are tight, we can just have a simpler wedding, something within our means. We don't need a 5-star venue. A nice, modest place would be just as lovely." Kevin slammed his hand on the table, hard enough to make a few patrons at nearby tables turn their heads. His face flushed with wounded pride. "Simple? What do you mean simple? I'm a manager. My guest list is full of CEOs and major clients. You want me to invite them to some cheap banquet hall so they can laugh in my face? If you don't have the money, go ask your dad to sell off some of that land he has up north. I heard he owns some property in New York, right? A father should be able to give his only daughter a decent wedding." Grace clenched her fists. Her father was a topic she rarely discussed. Robert Sterling was the governor of a major northeastern state, a man of immense wealth and power, but Grace had always wanted to live her own life, free from the shadow of his name. She had moved to Charleston precisely to prove she could succeed on her own terms. Kevin and his family had no idea about her true background. They thought she was the daughter of a struggling farmer from upstate. "My father has nothing to do with this. I'll say it again. I can contribute half the cost, as is customary. If you want a lavish affair to impress your business partners, you can figure out how to pay for the rest." Kevin let out a cold snort, standing up to adjust his blazer. "Fine. Think it over. Just don't come crying to me after you've married into my family and complain that we don't respect you. I have a client meeting. You can get home on your own." He walked out without a backward glance, heading to the parking lot where his leased BMW was parked. Grace sat alone, watching the bustling traffic on King Street. The ice in her water had completely melted, leaving a tasteless drink, much like the love she was desperately trying to hold on to. She wondered if this marriage was about to become the biggest mistake of her life. That weekend, Grace drove her beat-up Honda Civic over 30 miles from downtown Charleston to the sprawling suburbs where Kevin's family lived to formally discuss the wedding arrangements. The paved road leading into the subdivision snaked past manicured lawns and identical-looking houses, but Grace's heart was heavy with anxiety. Kevin's house was a modest ranch-style home that had recently been given a facelift. A grandiose wrought-iron gate, painted to look like bronze, opened onto a driveway. The pillars of the portico were clad in gleaming, fake marble, and two garish stone lions stood guard on top. But as Grace's old car rumbled past the gate, its sputtering muffler echoed through the quiet neighborhood, setting off a chorus of barking dogs. Kevin, who was watering plants in the front yard, didn't come to greet her. Instead, he scowled and gestured for her to kill the engine immediately. "What is that thing? A lawnmower?" he hissed. "I've told you 100 times to get a decent car. You show up here in that piece of junk, and the neighbors will think my family is taking in a charity case." Grace parked, took off her sunglasses, and wiped the sweat from her brow. "It runs fine, Kevin. It's a long drive, and this car is reliable. Besides, I don't need to impress anyone." Just then, Brenda, Kevin's mother, stepped out of the house. She was wearing a loud, floral print loungewear set. A thick gold chain, looking more like a dog collar, hung around her neck, and her fingers were covered in chunky rings. She scanned Grace's car, then her simple outfit, a white blouse and black slacks, with a critical, assessing gaze. "Hello, Mrs. Miller." Brenda didn't reply immediately. She jerked her chin toward the car. "Park that thing around back. It's an eyesore. This family drives luxury cars. We can't have that jalopy sitting in our driveway. It ruins the whole aesthetic." Grace suppressed a sigh and drove the car to the back of the house. The backyard was a stark contrast to the polished facade. The paint on the walls was peeling, revealing patches of mildew. Old furniture and junk were piled up in a corner. It was damp and dark. It was clear this family cared only about the superficial shell they presented to the world, not the actual quality of their lives. Lunch was a tense affair. Though the table was laden with roasted chicken and green bean casserole, the atmosphere was frigid. Tom, Kevin's father, poured himself a glass of whiskey and looked at Grace with bleary eyes. "So, you fix old books or something? What's the pay like? Enough to support yourself, or are you planning to live off my son?" "I'm a conservator at the Historical Society, sir. The income is stable. It's enough for me to live on and save a little." Brenda placed a large piece of chicken on Kevin's plate, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "How much is stable? 40,000 a year? 50? My Kevin is a manager. He pulls in 6 figures, not including his commissions. He's the pride of this family. He needs a wife who is his equal, someone who can help his career. A woman who just buries her face in moldy old paper is no help at all." Kevin nodded in agreement as he ate. "See, Grace? Mom's right. You should really reconsider your career. Why don't you quit that dusty museum job and get a corporate position, an accountant or something in HR? The pay is better, and it's more respectable. You always smell like old books. It's not appealing." Grace put down her fork, a lump forming in her throat. Her profession was her passion, a way to preserve culture and history. Why did they make it sound so worthless? "I love my job, and I have no intention of changing it. As for our finances, I am confident I won't ever be a burden to Kevin." Brenda's lips curled into a sneer. My. Not even a daughter-in-law yet, and already talking back. A woman should know her place, listen to her elders. We may live in the suburbs, but we have standards. Look at Tiffany, Kevin's sister. She's stylish, always looks her best. It would be a disgrace if the sister-in-law outshone the wife. As if on cue, Tiffany emerged from her bedroom, holding the latest iPhone, a white sheet mask covering her face. She glanced at Grace dismissively before whining to her mother, "Mom, can I have $100? I need to get my nails done. This set is a mess, and I have a friend's birthday party tonight." Brenda immediately pulled a crisp $100 bill from her pocket and handed it to her daughter. "Of course, sweetie. Go make yourself pretty. My daughter always has to look her best, not like some people who look like the hired help. Brenda's jab felt like a slap in the face. Grace understood that in this family's eyes, a person's worth was measured not by their character or intellect, but by their clothes, their car, and their phony, glittering exterior. That evening, Grace tried to leave, but Kevin and Brenda insisted she stay the night, saying they needed to finalize the catering plans in the morning. Grace was relegated to the living room, forced to sleep on a lumpy, old sofa, while perfectly good guest rooms were either empty or filled with clutter. Lying there, listening to the buzz of mosquitoes, she couldn't fall asleep. Whispers drifted from the master bedroom. Brenda was on the bed, counting a wad of crumpled bills from the cash register of the small convenience store she ran. Her face was a mask of worry. Tom lay with his feet up on the wall, smoking a cheap cigar. "This is getting serious," Brenda said. "Tiffany just confessed to me she took out a $5,000 payday loan to buy that designer bag and go on that trip to Aspen last winter. With the interest, it's ballooned to over $15,000. The collectors are threatening to come to the house, to make a scene." Tom sat up abruptly, coughing. "What? Are you crazy letting her do that? You spoil her rotten. And now look, where are we going to get that kind of money? Kevin said the real estate market is frozen, and we just spent everything on the new facade for the house." Brenda shot her husband a glare. "What do you know? A girl has to look good to land a rich husband. It's done now. Yelling won't solve anything. I have a plan. With Kevin's wedding coming up, we have to use this opportunity to clear her debt." Tom looked confused. "How? That Grace girl's family looks like they don't have 2 cents to rub together." Brenda smirked, a cunning glint in her eye. "Poor they may be, but she's been working in the city for years. She must have a savings account, and Kevin said she's very frugal. Here's what we'll do. We'll pressure her family to provide a hefty gift before the wedding. We'll call it seed money for Kevin to start his own business, a joint investment in their future. I'll take that money to pay off Tiffany's debt and use the rest to throw a wedding that will make us the talk of the town. After the wedding, we'll collect the gift money and be set." Tom scratched his head. "But how much should we ask for? Too little is pointless. Too much, and she might say no. We have to ask for a lot. $50,000. It's the perfect amount to cover Tiffany's debt, with a little left over for me to buy some new jewelry for the wedding day. We'll be firm. We'll say it's about Kevin's honor, the family's reputation. If she wants to marry into this family, she has to play by our rules. Kevin will do whatever I say. If he puts the pressure on, that lovesick girl will find a way." In the next room, Kevin was still awake. He overheard his parents' conversation but felt no objection. In fact, he was relieved that his mother had found a solution to his sister's problem that didn't involve his own money. He knew Tiffany was irresponsible, but she was his sister. He couldn't let her get hurt by loan sharks. As for Grace, if she truly loved him, what was $50,000? It was a test of her love. Besides, if Grace provided the money, he could boast to his friends that his wife was supporting his entrepreneurial ambitions. Kevin lay in the dark, plotting how he would approach Grace the next day. He felt no guilt, only annoyance that Grace wasn't already rich like the daughters of his clients or the models he saw online. His selfishness and vanity had blinded him, turning his fiancée into a tool to settle his family's debts. The next morning, as Grace woke up, Brenda cheerfully served her a bowl of lukewarm instant noodles for breakfast. She then launched into a long-winded speech about their family's financial struggles, subtly weaving in tales about Kevin's brilliant future if only he had a solid financial launching pad. Grace ate in silence, a knot forming in her stomach. She could feel a web of deceit being spun around her with every sweet, disingenuous word. Back at the office on Monday, Kevin was in a foul mood. The real estate market was dead. His sales team was scrolling through their phones, and the pressure of meeting quarterly targets was crushing him. Just as he was staring at a sales report bleeding red ink, Jessica walked in. Jessica was a new agent on his team. She stood out from the other office workers with her bombshell looks. Today, she wore a tight-fitting red dress that hugged every curve, its plunging neckline revealing smooth, pale skin. The heavy scent of her perfume hit Kevin as she approached his desk. "Kevin, you look so stressed. What's wrong? Let me take you to lunch." I know a great Italian place, my treat. Kevin looked up, meeting Jessica's flirtatious gaze. He tried to maintain a professional distance. I'm busy, and I can't let a lady pay. Jessica giggled, a sound like silver bells. She leaned over his desk, deliberately giving him an eyeful of her cleavage. Oh, come on. This isn't the 1,950 seconds. You look like you're about to explode. I just want to help you unwind. I heard you're getting married soon. All the wedding expenses must be weighing on you. It's tough being a man, having to carry the world on your shoulders. I wish I could find a responsible man like you to lean on. Jessica's praise hit Kevin's greatest weakness, his desperate need for admiration. With Grace, he often felt intellectually inferior, despite his attempts to act superior. Grace was too perceptive. She saw right through him, which made him uneasy. Jessica, on the other hand, made him feel like a powerful, successful man who could protect and provide. Kevin closed his laptop and smiled. All right, since you're so persuasive, but lunch is on me. During lunch at the upscale restaurant, Jessica poured honey into his ears. She boasted about her extensive network and the wealthy investors eager to work with her. She claimed they all pursued her, but she wasn't interested because they had money but no soul. She preferred a man like Kevin, who had both talent and heart. Actually, she said, leaning in conspiratorially, I have a few VIP clients looking to buy beachfront properties. They trust my judgment completely. If you want, I can refer them to you. You close the deal, you get the commission. Think of it as my wedding gift to you and your fiancé. Kevin's eyes lit up. If he closed those deals, his commission would be in the tens of thousands. The solution to his financial woes seemed to have fallen right into his lap. He looked at Jessica with gratitude and awe. Really, Jessica? You'd do that for me? I don't know how to thank you. Jessica placed her hand over his on the table, stroking it gently. It's nothing. I just like to help people I admire. Your fiancée must be so happy. She's marrying such a brilliant man. She must be quite the catch herself, to have won your heart. Kevin sighed, pulling his hand away, but not too quickly. The image of Grace in her dusty clothes, with her old car and her rigid principles, flashed in his mind, a stark contrast to the vibrant, fragrant woman sitting before him. She's average, works for the government, makes peanuts, a bit of a homebody, doesn't really know how to dress up. We don't exactly look like a match when we go out. Jessica covered her mouth to hide a triumphant smile. The fish had taken the bait. In reality, Jessica was drowning in debt from her extravagant lifestyle and online gambling addiction. She was looking for a man to bail her out, and Kevin, the vain and insecure sales manager, was the perfect target. She knew he was engaged, but stealing another woman's man had never been a moral dilemma for her, as long as there was money involved. Oh, you poor thing. A man like you deserves a woman who makes him look good, someone who can be a partner in life, not just a fixture in the kitchen. Let's finish up. We can grab coffee, and I'll tell you more about my clients. Kevin nodded eagerly, his heart racing. He had no idea he was walking into a sweet, elaborate trap. His own foolish comparisons were not only pushing Grace away, but also leading his own life toward a cliff. From that day on, the texts between Kevin and Jessica grew more frequent. Their work meetings became a regular occurrence, and the distance between him and Grace widened into a chasm. On Saturday afternoon, the golden sunlight of Charleston's late autumn streamed through the Spanish moss hanging from ancient oak trees. Grace sat behind Kevin on his motorcycle, giving him directions to her home. He had insisted on seeing where she grew up to plan the logistics for the wedding day. Grace had agreed, curious to see how he would react to the unvarnished reality of her upbringing. Kevin's polished motorcycle struggled to navigate the narrow, cobblestone alleyway. The lane was so tight that two bikes could barely pass each other. The old brick walls on either side were weathered and covered in ferns. "What kind of back alley is this?" Kevin complained. "How is a limo supposed to get through here? Are the wedding guests supposed to walk from the main street?" Grace's voice was calm. "This has been my family's home for generations. The alley is small, but it's quiet, and the neighbors are wonderful. Just a little further." The motorcycle finally stopped in front of a heavy, dark wood gate weathered by centuries of sun and rain. Above it, a slate roof was missing a few tiles, and the house number was rusted and crooked. Kevin killed the engine and took off his helmet, staring at the house with unconcealed disappointment. He had imagined that even if Grace wasn't wealthy, a home in the historic district would be stately and charming. This place, tucked away in a hidden corner, looked like an abandoned shrine. "This is your house?" It looked so gloomy. Grace said nothing, unlocking the gate. The hinges creaked. The front courtyard was paved with worn-out bricks, green moss filling the cracks. A massive, ancient magnolia tree cast a deep shadow, making the place feel even more secluded. Inside, the house was dark, filled with the scent of old wood and faint incense. The furniture was all antique wood, but not the glossy, polished kind Kevin was used to seeing in the homes of the newly rich. These were dark, imposing armoires and hand-carved cabinets with peeling lacquer. Books, old, dusty, and stacked, precariously filled every shelf. A few cracked ceramic vases lay in a corner, looking like items waiting for a garage sale. Kevin walked around, hands clasped behind his back, shaking his head. "This place is like a junk warehouse. Why don't you tell your parents to sell it and buy a modern condo? This old wood is probably rotting from termites." Grace poured him a glass of water in a simple earthenware cup. "These are family heirlooms. My father would never sell, and I find it very peaceful here." Kevin picked up the cup, then set it down, afraid to drink from it. He looked at Grace, his hopes for a financially beneficial marriage crumbling. So much for marrying into old Charleston money. He had assumed anyone living in the historic district was secretly wealthy. Turns out Grace was just plain poor. Peaceful? It's damp and depressing. Look around, Grace. People have flat-screen TVs, stainless steel fridges, leather sofas. Your house is filled with stuff from a bygone era. I'm telling you now, I'm not inviting many of my friends here for the rehearsal dinner. It's too embarrassing. Grace looked into Kevin's eyes and saw the undisguised calculation and contempt. She gave a small, bitter smile. He had no idea that the dark, imposing armoire he'd just insulted was a 17th century antique worth more than the condo he dreamed of, or that the cracked vases were rare colonial pottery sought after by collectors. But she didn't explain. She wanted a man who loved her for who she was, not for her possessions. "Then just tell everyone my family is poor. I've never pretended otherwise." Kevin exhaled in frustration. "You make it sound so simple. In this day and age, money is everything. I thought you were being frugal to save for something big, but it turns out you're just poor. Let's go. Another minute in here and I'll get depressed." Kevin hurried Grace out of the house, eager to escape. On the way back, he was cold and distant. He no longer talked excitedly about wedding photos or honeymoon destinations. His mind was consumed with a cost-benefit analysis. Marrying Grace meant taking on a poor wife and a family with no financial upside. His dream of leveraging his marriage to get ahead was officially dead. As soon as Grace got back to her apartment, her phone rang. It was Tiffany, Kevin's sister. A sense of dread washed over her. Tiffany never called unless she wanted something. Grace answered. Tiffany's voice was sharp, without any greeting. "Grace?" "About the wedding, I've seen the bridesmaid dresses you picked out. They're hideous. I'm not wearing that. Just wire me $500 and I'll have one custom made." Grace took a deep breath. "Tiffany, I've already put a deposit down with the bridal shop. They have plenty of styles. Why don't you go try some on? $500 for a dress you'll wear once is too much." Tiffany's voice rose. "Too much? My only brother is getting married once. I have to look good for the family. Don't be so cheap. Anyway, the dress is a minor issue. I called about something more important." She paused for dramatic effect. "On the wedding day, during the gift exchange, you need to give me a special present. A 24-karat gold bracelet, at least 3 ounces. Grace was speechless. She had never heard of a tradition where the bride had to give gold to her sister-in-law. "What are you talking about? Why would I have to give you gold?" Tiffany laughed condescendingly. "Oh, please. Don't act so clueless. All my friends who got married bought their sisters-in-law a nice gift to get on their good side. If you want a peaceful life in this family, you need to be smart. It's just a little gold. You've been working for years. Don't tell me you can't afford it. It's a gesture. The relatives will see it and say you're generous and know how to behave. Don't show up empty-handed and embarrass everyone." Grace felt her blood boil. Tiffany's audacity was beyond belief. "Listen to me, Tiffany. The money I earn comes from hard work, not from picking it off trees. I am marrying your brother to build a life with him, not to buy people's affection. I don't have gold to give you, and I wouldn't do it even if I did." The line went silent for a moment. Then Tiffany shrieked, "So, you're already trying to walk all over us before you've even married in? You're too cheap to give your sister-in-law a small gift, but you expect to be welcomed into this family? Fine. You just remember this. We'll see how long you last in this house." Tiffany slammed the phone down. Grace stared at her phone, shaking her head. She knew this wasn't over. As expected, Kevin called that evening, his voice full of blame. "What did you do? Tiffany is crying her eyes out, and Mom is yelling at me. What is wrong with you?" Grace calmly explained Tiffany's demand for gold. She expected Kevin to understand, but his reaction only deepened her disappointment. "It's not a big deal. Why did you have to make a scene? She's the youngest. Just give her what she wants. Buying her a bracelet isn't going to bankrupt you. She's going to be your family. If she likes you, your life will be easier." "You're too rigid." "No wonder Mom says you're not diplomatic." "Are you kidding me? That's thousands of dollars. If you want to spoil your sister, you use your own money. Don't force me to pay for her unreasonable demands." Kevin snapped back. "Why are you always so calculating with my family? Fine, do whatever you want, but you'd better watch how you talk to my mother. She's furious." The call ended in anger. Back at Kevin's house, Brenda was comforting Tiffany, who was putting on a show with crocodile tears. "See, Mom? I told you she looks down on us. She said her money isn't for people like me. She called me a gold digger. If you let her marry into this family, she'll kick you out of your own house one day." Brenda gritted her teeth, her eyes flashing with anger. "That little pauper dares to be so disrespectful. Don't you worry. I'll teach her a lesson. We'll see if she can hold on to her precious money or if she'll have to hand it all over to us." A few days later, Kevin texted Grace, inviting her to dinner. He said he wanted to make up for the recent unpleasantness and introduce her to an important business partner. Weary but still hopeful, Grace agreed. She chose a simple, elegant beige dress and applied light makeup. The restaurant was a chic, European-style bistro with warm lighting and soft music. But when Grace arrived, she saw Kevin wasn't alone. Sitting next to him was a young, beautiful woman in a flashy dress, laughing loudly. It was Jessica. As Grace approached, the smile on Kevin's face froze when he saw her understated appearance. He stood up and made a brief introduction. "Grace, this is Jessica, a colleague and strategic partner from my company. Jessica, this is Grace, my fiancée." Jessica looked Grace up and down, her sharp eyes filled with unconcealed disdain. She then offered a fake, saccharine smile. "Hi, Grace. Kevin's told me so much about you. You're so simple, very down to earth." Grace sat down, feeling like a third wheel. Throughout the meal, Kevin and Jessica talked excitedly about billion-dollar real estate projects, trips to Europe, and expensive wines. They used industry jargon and inside jokes, effectively isolating Grace. "Kevin," Jessica said, leaning close to him, "that oceanfront villa I showed you? My client loved it. We closed the deal today. Get the paperwork ready. We'll split the commission. It's enough for you to get a new car." Kevin's face lit up. He raised his wine glass to toast Jessica. "That's fantastic. You're the only one who really understands and supports me. Thank you, Jessica. You're a lifesaver." Grace quietly cut her steak. It tasted like ash. She tried to join the conversation. "So the market is picking up then?" Before Kevin could answer, Jessica cut in, her tone condescending. "Oh, Grace, you probably don't follow macroeconomics, do you? Restoring old books doesn't really prepare you for the waves of the real estate market. There are always opportunities for smart, well-connected people. But if you're just sitting around waiting for a government paycheck, you'll be stuck forever." Kevin nodded, thoroughly enjoying Jessica's jab at Grace. He made no move to defend his fiancée. "Jessica's right, honey. You just focus on your old papers. Leave the money-making to the men, or to brilliant women like Jessica here." His words were a knife to her heart. Just then, the waiter brought another bottle of wine. Jessica pretended to reach for it, and her elbow, accidentally, knocked over Grace's full glass of red wine. The glass shattered on the table, and dark red liquid splashed all over Grace's beige dress, staining it like a gruesome wound. Wine spattered on her face and glasses. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm so clumsy," Jessica exclaimed, covering her mouth with her hand, but her eyes danced with satisfaction. She half-heartedly offered Grace a few napkins. Kevin scowled at Grace's messy appearance. "For heaven's sake, Grace, we're in a nice restaurant. How could you be so careless? You couldn't even dodge it? You look like a mess." He wasn't concerned if she was hurt or cold, only that she was causing a scene. "Go to the restroom and clean up, or just take a cab home. You're drawing attention." Grace held the napkins and looked directly into Kevin's eyes. In that moment, whatever was left of her love for him shattered like the wine glass. She realized this man was not just greedy and vain, but also heartless and cruel. "Fine. I'll leave and get out of your sight." Grace stood up, not bothering to wipe the stain, and walked proudly out of the restaurant, ignoring the curious stares of the other diners. Behind her, she could hear Jessica's muffled giggle and Kevin's sigh of relief, a bitter soundtrack to the end of her relationship. Brenda paced back and forth, her face a pale sheet of anxiety. For days, the loan sharks had been loitering outside her house, not causing a scene yet, but making their presence known. They'd thrown a can of red paint on the front door during the night and sent text messages threatening to break Tiffany's legs. Tiffany hadn't left her room in days. The debt had snowballed into a figure that was terrifying for a family living on false pretenses. Brenda knew she couldn't hide it any longer. She called Kevin for an emergency family meeting. In the living room, Brenda sat trembling, holding the loan agreement. "Kevin, you have to save your sister. They're threatening to kill her. She's my only daughter. If something happens to her, I can't go on." Kevin ran his hands through his hair. "How am I supposed to save her? All my money is tied up in that land deal. I can't sell it at a loss, and a bank loan would take too long. What were you two thinking getting into this mess?" Brenda wiped away a tear, then glanced at her husband, who sat silently in a corner. She took a deep breath and laid out the plan she had been concocting. "There's only one way. We have to rely on your wedding." "How?" "We won't get any gift money until after the wedding, and they want the cash this week." "We're not waiting for wedding gifts. We're getting the money from Grace's family." Kevin was bewildered. "Grace's family is poor, Mom. Where would they get that kind of money? I saw their house. It's falling apart." Brenda waved her hand dismissively, her expression turning sharp and cunning. "You're so naive. Still waters run deep. She works at a museum, lives in the historic district. They must have hidden assets. The ones who complain about being poor are always the ones with money. I heard some of that old furniture is worth a fortune. She's probably hiding it from you. Now, here's the plan. You go and tell her that our family has a tradition. A reverse dowry." "A what? I've never heard of that." "So, we'll invent it. You tell her that to be accepted as the primary daughter-in-law in this esteemed family, she needs to contribute financially. Specifically, $50,000. $50,000? Kevin gasped. The number was the exact total of Tiffany's debt, plus interest, and a little extra that Brenda wanted for herself. "Yes. You tell her it's to help you start your own company, to build your career. You're about to be married. Her money is your money. It's an investment in your shared future. You can pay her back later. Be charming. Play on her desire to be a good, supportive wife. If she really loves you, she'll find a way. Tell her to go home and ask her parents to sell some of that old junk in their house. That should be enough." Kevin hesitated. As materialistic as he was, demanding money so brazenly felt wrong. But what if she really doesn't have it? Or what if she gets offended and calls off the wedding? "That would be humiliating," Brenda sneered. "She's almost 30. If she leaves you, who's going to marry her? And what are you afraid of? You're a handsome manager. If not her, you can marry that Jessica girl you told me about. She's rich and stylish. This is a perfect test of Grace's loyalty. If she's not willing to help her husband in a time of crisis, then she's not worth marrying anyway. Be firm, Kevin. Tell her it's a matter of family honor." The mention of Jessica made Kevin waver. It was true. Compared to Jessica, Grace was a world apart. If Grace didn't have money, this marriage was pointless. But if he could get the money from her, he would solve his sister's debt problem, gain a reputation as a savvy entrepreneur supported by his wife, and uphold his family's phony prestige. Vanity and greed won out over his last shred of conscience. "Okay," he nodded. "I'll find a way to talk to her. I want to see if she's really as poor as she claims, or just cheap." Brenda breathed a sigh of relief, a triumphant gleam in her eyes. She was certain that with Kevin's persuasion and what she believed was Grace's blind love for her son, the plan would succeed. The entire family sank into a collective fantasy of using someone else's money to fill the bottomless pit of their own desires, oblivious to the fact that they were lighting the fuse on a bomb that would destroy them all. That afternoon, Grace was carefully working on a fragile 18th century manuscript in her lab at the Historical Society when her phone rang. Seeing a New York area code, she quickly removed her gloves and stepped into the quiet hallway to answer. On the other end was the warm, familiar voice of Arthur, her father's chief of staff. "Grace, it's Arthur. Your father is in a meeting, but he asked me to call. He's cleared his schedule and will be flying down to Charleston next weekend for your wedding. He said he misses you terribly and wants to finally meet this fiancé you've been hiding from him." Grace sighed softly. She had guarded her identity as the governor's daughter for years to live a normal life. She was afraid her father's arrival would disrupt everything, especially now that she saw so many red flags with Kevin's family. "Arthur, please tell Dad I'm thrilled, but ask him to come as a private citizen. No official car, no security detail. I want to keep things simple. And please, tell him not to reveal his position to Kevin's family just yet. Let them think he's just a retired civil servant from back home." Arthur chuckled. "You always were cautious. Your father just wants the world for you, but he'll respect your wishes, as long as you're happy. Speaking of which, how are they treating you? Your father worries about you being down there all alone." Grace hesitated, then forced a cheerful tone. "I'm fine, Arthur. They're very attentive. Please tell Dad not to worry." After hanging up, she stood there for a long moment. The word "fine" felt like a lie caught in her throat. Just then, she heard the familiar sound of Kevin's motorcycle in the parking lot. He had come to pick her up, but his face was etched with anxiety, not the excitement of a man in love. He parked and walked straight to her, barely glancing at the security guard. He pulled her over to a stone bench under a large oak tree. "Are you done? We need to talk. It's urgent." Seeing his tense expression, Grace guessed it was about Tiffany's debt. She sat down. "What's wrong? You look serious." Kevin swallowed hard, his hands fidgeting. He had rehearsed this speech a dozen times with his mother, but facing Grace's clear, steady gaze, he felt a pang of guilt. The image of the loan sharks, however, erased any hesitation. "Here's the thing. I just got an inside tip about a major rezoning project in the West Ashley area. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to branch out on my own, to open my own real estate firm. You know, I can't get rich working for someone else. I want us to build our future together, starting now." Grace's brows furrowed. Something wasn't right. Kevin was in debt. His assets were frozen. Where would he get the capital to start a firm? "What are you trying to say, Kevin?" He took a deep breath and dropped the bomb. "I need about $50,000 in capital. I want you to use your savings, or figure out a way to get it, and give it to me. Consider it your family's contribution to our marriage and our seed money. My mom said that if you help me with this, she'll let you manage all the household finances after we're married." Grace froze. $50,000 wasn't an impossible sum for her, but the way he asked for it was repulsive. This was extortion, wrapped in a pretty bow of "our future." "You want to start a company when the market is this slow? And my savings are for emergencies, not for a high-risk venture. Besides, a wedding gift is given from the heart. Why are you putting a price tag on it, like a business transaction?" Kevin's temper flared. "How can you say that? Your future husband wants to build a better life for us, and you're shooting him down. What are you hoarding that money for? You can't take it with you when you die. This is a test of love and trust. If you don't trust me, if you're not willing to invest in me, then you don't really love me. You only love your bank account." He was using classic manipulation tactics, equating her refusal to give him money with a lack of love. Grace looked at the man before her and felt like she was seeing a stranger. The silence was heavy. Grace didn't get angry. She didn't cry. She simply adjusted her glasses, her gaze piercing through him. Her calm unnerved him. "What's wrong? You're not saying anything. Are you really that cheap?" Grace spoke slowly, her voice like ice. "I'm just wondering how much of your proposal is genuine and how much is just exploitation. What if I told you I don't have that kind of money? What would you do then?" Kevin stammered. "How could you not have it? You've been working for years. Or did you send it all to your father? Don't be so selfish." "So what would you do? Call off the wedding?" Grace cut him off with a sharp question. Kevin was cornered. He didn't want to say the words, but he needed to threaten her. "I wouldn't, but my mother would be devastated. She has high expectations for her daughter-in-law. If you don't play ball, life will be very difficult for you. Look at my colleague, Jessica. She's not even my fiancée, and she's already offering me luxury cars and business deals. And you, my future wife, are counting every penny. Aren't you ashamed?" Jessica again. The name seemed to be on his lips constantly now. Grace let out a bitter laugh. So, in his eyes, her worth was measured in dollars and obedience, weighed against a flirty colleague. He didn't want a wife. He wanted an ATM. "All right, let me think about it. This is a big decision." Hearing her say she'd think about it, Kevin's mood lifted instantly. He assumed she was scared of his family's disapproval and was now scrambling to find the money. His tone softened. "That's my girl. I knew you loved me. Try to get it soon, okay? Opportunity waits for no one. Once we have the money, we'll have the wedding of the century." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away and stood up. "I'm tired. I'll get home on my own. You go take care of your business." Kevin watched her walk away, a smug smile on his face. He immediately called his mother. "Mom, the fish is on the hook. She said she needs to think about it, which means she's going to get the money. Get ready to pay off Tiffany's debt." On the other end of the line, Brenda's shrill laughter echoed, mixed with Tiffany's cheers of joy. They were celebrating their deceitful victory, completely unaware that Grace's silence was not surrender. It was the calm before a storm that would tear away their masks and expose them for who they truly were. 2 days later, Brenda summoned Grace to the house for dinner. She called it an intimate family meal to finalize wedding preparations, but it was really an ambush. When Grace arrived, the dinner table was set, but no one was eating. Brenda was seated on a large wooden sofa in the center of the living room, fanning herself, her face a cold mask. Tiffany sat beside her, painting her nails and shooting daggers at Grace. Tom was in a corner, smoking. Grace greeted them, but only received a grunt from Tom in return. Brenda didn't even look at her. "Sit down," she commanded, pointing to a small plastic stool. "I called you here because there are a few things you need to learn. If you're going to be a part of this family, you need to know the rules." Grace quietly sat down, feeling like a defendant in a courtroom. Brenda began her usual tirade. "My family may not be royalty, but we have a reputation in this community. Kevin is my only son, the heir. His marriage is a serious matter. Frankly, I don't approve of your job. All that time with old, musty things from dead people. It brings bad energy into the house. It's bad for your husband's career." Grace listened patiently. "Ma'am, my job is in cultural preservation. It's respected by the state." Brenda slammed her fan down. "Don't talk back to me. I say it's bad luck, and it's bad luck. Look at you. You've been doing it for years, and you have nothing to show for it. Kevin is in business. He needs positive energy, style, luxury. If you can't help him with his image, you have to help him financially." She paused, gauging Grace's reaction, before delivering the final blow. "That $50,000 Kevin asked you for, have you gotten it yet? Let me be clear, this isn't a request, it's a requirement. To marry into this family, you have to make a worthy contribution. $50,000 is a small price to pay for my son's honor and his position." Tiffany chimed in, her voice shrill. "She's right, Grace. Look at Jessica, Kevin's friend. She drives a Mercedes, gives him expensive gifts. If you can't even come up with a little cash, what right do you have to be with my brother? People will say he married beneath him." Grace's hands, resting on her knees, tightened into fists. Their shamelessness was breathtaking. They weren't just greedy, they were using superstition and cruel comparisons to demean her. "I'm sorry, but I believe marriage is about love and partnership. I've never heard of a tradition where the bride has to pay cash to get married. If you and Kevin value money more than love, then I'm afraid I can't meet your demands." Brenda shot to her feet, pointing a finger in Grace's face. "How dare you? In this house, my word is law. No money, no wedding. I forbid it. You think my son can't find another wife? There's a line of rich girls waiting for him. You have 3 days. If you don't bring the money, the engagement is off." She waved her hand, dismissing Grace like a servant. Grace stood, gave a polite nod, and walked out of the suffocating house. She wasn't afraid of their threats. She just felt pity for people, so blinded by money they could no longer see what truly mattered. The 3-day deadline was almost up. Kevin was getting anxious. Grace hadn't mentioned the money, but he was confident she would cave. To add more pressure, he took her to try on wedding dresses. He drove her to a small, dingy shop in a strip mall that rented out cheap, outdated gowns. The moment they walked in, the smell of mothballs and stale fabric hit them. The dresses on the racks were yellowed, with torn lace and cheap plastic beads. "Pick one from this rack," Kevin said, pointing to a section with a clearance sign. "It's the cheapest package. A few $100. You only wear it once, who cares what it looks like? We need to save money for more important things." Grace touched the rough fabric of a dress, her heart growing cold. A woman dreams of her wedding dress her whole life, and he was treating it like a disposable costume. Meanwhile, he picked out a sleek, modern tuxedo for himself, which cost 3 times as much to rent as her entire dress package. "I need to look the part," he said defensively. "I'm the groom, the manager. No one really looks at the bride anyway." Just as Grace was reluctantly holding up a strapless gown with yellow stains under the arms, the shop door swung open. An overwhelming cloud of expensive perfume filled the room. It was Jessica, followed by 2 assistants from a high-end bridal boutique, carrying large garment bags. "Kevin, Grace, fancy seeing you here," Jessica chirped, her eyes landing on the sad-looking dress in Grace's hands. She giggled. "Oh my, Grace, are you actually planning to wear that dish rag on your wedding day? Your taste is so unique. It looks like something from a bad 80 Seconds prom movie." Kevin's eyes lit up at the sight of Jessica. He immediately abandoned Grace and rushed over. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" "Oh, I was just trying on gowns for my company's annual gala and thought I'd pop in to show you. This is a custom designer piece, covered in Swarovski crystals. The rental fee for one night is probably more than Grace's monthly salary." Jessica had an assistant unveil the dress. It was a stunning, fiery red gown that shimmered under the fluorescent lights, making everything else in the shop look drab. She held it up against herself and twirled, looking at Kevin seductively. "What do you think? Can I wear this to your wedding? I might just upstage the bride." Kevin stared, captivated. "It's beautiful. You look beautiful in everything. So elegant, so classy." He then turned to look at Grace, holding her tattered dress, and shook his head in disgust. "You should learn from Jessica," he said cruelly. "A woman with class can make a potato sack look good, but if you have no style, even designer clothes will look cheap on you. Just pick something already so we can leave. I have to take Jessica to a meeting." His words were the final, crushing blow. Grace looked at the two of them, one obsessed with money and status, the other a shameless homewrecker, and any lingering hope for a decent marriage vanished. She threw the old dress onto a chair, wiping her hands as if to clean them of filth. She didn't cry. She just looked at Kevin with utter pity. "No need. I don't see anything I like." She turned and walked out of the store. Kevin, stunned, called after her, "Hey, where are you going? What's with the attitude?" Grace didn't look back. As she walked out into the street and blended into the crowd, her heart felt strangely light. She had made her decision. This play was over, and she would be the one to write the final scene, an ending that Kevin and his family would never forget. 3 days before the engagement party, the South Carolina heat was suffocating. Inside Kevin's house, the tension was at a boiling point. The loan sharks had started driving by slowly, their threatening glares a constant reminder of the ticking clock. Tiffany remained hidden in her room. Brenda sat fanning herself furiously, her makeup melting in the humidity, relentlessly pressuring Kevin to get the money from Grace. Kevin paced the living room, phone in hand. He had texted Grace several times, but her replies were vague. His patience, fueled by his mother's panic, had run out. He decided it was time to play hardball. He dialed Grace's number and put the phone on speaker for his family to hear. After several rings, she answered, her voice so calm and even it infuriated him. "Hello?" Kevin cleared his throat, trying to sound authoritative. "The engagement party is this weekend. What's the status of that thing I asked you to prepare? The $50,000 in cash. Have you withdrawn it?" "The party is our only official event before the wedding, so everything needs to be settled then." There was a pause on the other end, the faint sound of papers rustling. "I'm still working on it. A sum that large isn't easy to get on short notice." That was it for Kevin. He was convinced she was stalling. His mother's words, Jessica's taunts, and his own wounded pride exploded. "Don't give me excuses. This is your final chance. On the day of the party, you will bring the full $50,000 in cash in a ceremonial box and present it to my family. It's our tradition. For good luck. If you show up without it, don't blame me for what happens." Grace's voice remained unnervingly calm. "And if I don't bring it, you'll really call off the wedding?" Kevin laughed cruelly, glancing at his mother, who was nodding encouragement. "Oh, I'll do more than that. I'll make sure everyone knows you're a cheap, calculating liar. And another thing, your behavior at the dress shop was unacceptable. At the party, in front of both our families, you will publicly apologize to my mother for upsetting her, and you will apologize to me for embarrassing me. You will promise to be an obedient, respectful wife from now on." The outrageous demands flowed from him effortlessly. He was certain that Grace, a plain, aging woman from a poor family, would cling to him like a life raft. He held all the cards. Brenda leaned close to the phone and added, her voice sharp, "That's right. This is a respectable family. We don't tolerate disrespectful daughters-in-law. If you want to be a part of it, you learn to bow your head. The money and the apology. If you're missing either one, you can just turn around and go home." There was a long silence on the other end. Then, Grace's voice came through, still soft, but with an underlying edge of steel. "Very well. On that day, I will bring you exactly what you deserve. I will give you a definitive answer to all of your demands." She hung up. Kevin stared at the dark screen, then turned to his mother with a triumphant grin. "See? I told you she was scared of losing me. She's going to bring the money. Get ready to count it, Mom." A wave of relief washed over the family. They were victorious. They started planning how they would spend the leftover money after paying the debt, dreaming of the things they would buy to show off to the neighbors. They had no idea that what Grace was planning to bring was not money, but a lesson they would remember for the rest of their miserable lives. The day of the engagement party arrived. The morning was humid and overcast. In their backyard, the Miller family had set up a cheap party tent that encroached onto their neighbor's lawn. The tent frame was rusted, the canvas was a faded blue, and the folding chairs were cheap red plastic. Instead of fresh flowers, the tables were decorated with dusty plastic arrangements and bowls of cheap bulk bin candy. Brenda had been up since dawn, applying makeup so thick she looked like a stage performer. She wore a garish red dress and layers of fake gold jewelry she had borrowed to impress the guests. She barked orders at relatives who had come to help, playing the part of the powerful matriarch. Kevin, in his rented tux, looked tense. He kept looking toward the street, not for his fiancée, but for the box of money. Tiffany had emerged from her room, wearing a revealing dress completely inappropriate for a family event, snapping selfies to post online. Neighbors walked by, whispering, "I thought the Millers were doing so well. A manager's son marrying a city girl, and this is the party they throw? Looks so cheap. He must have found some desperate woman and is just going through the motions." Brenda overheard and muttered under her breath, "What do these hicks know? It's what's on the inside that counts. Just wait. You'll see my daughter-in-law bring chests of gold to this house." At exactly 11 a.m., the bride's party arrived. There was no fleet of limousines, just a single, plain, white 15-passenger van, the kind used for airport shuttles. Kevin's face fell. "See, Mom? I told you her family was dirt poor. That van is pathetic. How can I face my friends?" Brenda scowled. "Who cares? As long as she has the 50,000, that's all that matters. Her being poor is why she needs us." The van door opened, and Grace stepped out. She wore a simple, classic silk dress in a creamy ivory color. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant, low bun. Her makeup was minimal, giving her a serene, understated beauty that was a world away from Brenda's loud ostentation. She was accompanied by a few older gentlemen in simple, well-tailored suits. They were her father's old friends from the army, whom Grace had asked to pose as her uncles. They carried only a few modest gift baskets, following traditional etiquette. Kevin stood at the entrance to the tent, not even bothering to greet them. "You're here," he said flatly as Grace approached. "What's with the shuttle bus? You're embarrassing me. Get inside, let's get this over with." Grace looked at his condescending face and Brenda's scrutinizing glare. She smiled faintly and walked into the tent. Her calm composure only irritated Brenda more. Brenda remained seated on her throne, a patio chair placed at the head of the main table, not even standing to welcome her guests. Her eyes darted around, searching for the box of money. The two families were seated. One of Grace's uncles stood to give a short, heartfelt speech. In response, Tom, already drunk, slurred his way through a rambling, boastful speech about his family's importance. As soon as the formalities were over, Brenda couldn't wait any longer. She stood up abruptly and grabbed the microphone, causing a piercing screech of feedback. "Wait, we're not done yet. According to our family's special tradition, before the bride can be officially welcomed, she must perform the reverse dowry ceremony. It's a test of her sincerity." A murmur went through the crowd. No one had ever heard of such a thing. Brenda walked over to where Grace stood next to Kevin. She held out her hand, her chin high. "Well, where is the $50,000? Bring it out and present it, and then I will permit you to join this family." Kevin nudged Grace. "Hurry up, don't keep everyone waiting." Grace looked directly at Brenda, then at Kevin. Her voice, clear and steady, carried across the quiet tent without needing a microphone. "Madam and esteemed guests, I can assure you there is no tradition in this country that forces a bride to buy her way into a marriage with cash. I came here today with respect and sincere intentions. As for your demand for $50,000, I must decline. I do not have that money, and even if I did, I would never use it to purchase a man's love." The tent erupted in shocked whispers. Brenda's face turned purple with rage. She slammed her hand on the table. "What? You liar? You let us on, and now you back out? You fraud. You were just trying to trick us so you could leech off my son. No money, no wedding? Get out. My house is not a shelter for a lying, penniless beggar." Seeing his mother's fury and his dream of easy money evaporating, Kevin snapped. He grabbed Grace's arm, his grip like iron. "Are you kidding me, Grace? You want to die? How dare you humiliate me in front of everyone?" he roared, his eyes bloodshot. He tried to force her to her knees. "Kneel and apologize to my mother right now. Apologize for being a poor, deceitful wretch. Swear you'll get the money today, and maybe I'll forgive you. Otherwise, you won't walk out of here in one piece." Grace struggled, but he was too strong. Tiffany rushed forward, ready to slap her. The scene descended into chaos. Just as Kevin raised his hand to strike Grace, Jessica stepped out from the crowd. She was wearing the stunning red dress from the shop, a smug smirk on her face. "Oh, Kevin, don't waste your time on this trash. Just throw her out. Can't you see the poverty practically drips off her?" Fueled by her words, Kevin drew his arm back further. Grace closed her eyes, bracing for the impact, her heart filled not with fear, but with utter contempt. But the blow never landed. A deep, powerful engine roar echoed from the end of the street, drowning out the noise in the tent. Everyone turned. A long, gleaming black luxury sedan was gliding toward them, its iconic silver hood ornament sparkling in the sun. It was a Rolls-Royce Phantom. Following it were two black SUVs. The convoy stopped directly in front of the house, blocking the street. The entire party was silent, jaws agape. Brenda's fan dropped from her hand. Kevin froze, his hand still raised. The SUV doors opened, and 6 men in black suits and sunglasses stepped out, forming a protective cordon. One of them opened the rear door of the Rolls-Royce. A distinguished-looking man in a perfectly tailored gray suit stepped out. His presence radiated power and authority. His sharp eyes scanned the chaotic scene with controlled fury. It was Governor Robert Sterling. He walked calmly into the tent, his leather shoes clicking on the concrete. Arthur followed, carrying a briefcase. When Grace saw her father, her eyes welled up, but a proud smile touched her lips. She forcefully shoved Kevin's hand away and stood tall. Kevin stammered, his body trembling. He vaguely recognized the man from the news. Who are you? What are you doing at my party?" Governor Sterling ignored him. He walked to Grace's side and placed a protective hand on her shoulder, his gaze fixing on Kevin and Brenda as if they were insects. "Who I am is not important. What's important is that I'm here to take my daughter home. You were demanding money from her, weren't you? $50,000? His voice was low, but each word landed like a hammer blow. Jessica, recognizing the governor from investment conferences, turned pale and tried to slip away. Brenda, trembling, stammered, You're Grace's father?" "But," she said. Grace cut her off, her voice ringing with a strength no one had ever heard from her. "Yes, this is my father, Governor Robert Sterling, the man whose world you couldn't even dream of entering. The play is over. You wanted your payment, right?" She nodded to Arthur. He opened his briefcase. Inside was not cash, but a thick stack of documents, deeds, stock certificates, and a collection of photographs showing Tiffany at a loan shark's office and Kevin checking into a hotel with Jessica. The truth was laid bare, a brutal slap that destroyed not their bodies, but their pride. The sound of the idling engines outside was like thunder, signaling the storm that had just broken over their pathetic party. All eyes were fixed on Governor Sterling. The atmosphere was electric with fear. Kevin stood frozen, the hand he had raised to strike Grace now hanging limp and trembling. Grace pushed Kevin's hand off her completely, a gesture of finality. She took a step back to stand beside her father. Then, in a move that stunned everyone, she reached up, took off the thick, plain glasses she always wore, and tossed them onto a table. Without them, her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and blazing with defiance. She pulled a simple wooden pin from her hair, and a cascade of long, dark silk fell over her shoulders. Her entire demeanor shifted. The quiet, dusty book conservator was gone. In her place stood a poised, powerful woman, an heiress whose class and grace radiated from within, needing no jewels to adorn it. Kevin stared, speechless. He had never seen her look so beautiful, so formidable. Grace turned to her father. "You're just in time, Dad. I gave them one last chance, and they chose to trample on my dignity." Governor Sterling nodded, then gestured to Arthur, who stepped forward and placed a thick file and a red velvet box on the table. "To the groom's family," Arthur announced to the silent crowd, "we are not here for a wedding. We are here to return your gifts. But first, a few items for your consideration." He laid out the photographs. Tiffany signing loan documents, Brenda consulting a psychic about how to extract money from her future daughter-in-law, and crystal-clear shots of Kevin and Jessica at a hotel, accompanied by printouts of their text messages, where Kevin brutally mocked Grace and her poor family. Brenda saw the photos and collapsed into a chair, all the color draining from her face. Her family's darkest secrets were exposed for the entire neighborhood to see. Grace locked eyes with Kevin, her voice like ice. "Look closely. This is who you are. This is your family of hypocrites. Did you think I was blind? I work with historical records. Researching your filthy secrets was child's play. I stayed silent to see how long you would keep up the act. Today, you crossed the line." Kevin stammered, sweat pouring down his face. "Grace, it's not what you think. I was trapped. I only love you." Grace burst out laughing, a sound that was both bitter and liberating. "Love?" The laughter stopped, and the silence that followed was terrifying. She stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Grace Sterling, only daughter of Governor Robert Sterling. You called me poor? You mocked my profession? This profession is my passion. As for my assets, you couldn't earn in 100 lifetimes what I have." She picked up the stack of documents from Arthur. Here are the deeds to 3 oceanfront mansions, 500 acres of farmland, and controlling shares in several major corporations, all in my name. I kept it a secret because I wanted a man who would love me, not for my father's name or my trust fund. For a while, Kevin, I hoped that man was you." Kevin's eyes glazed over as he saw the deeds. The value was astronomical, and he, the greedy fool, had tried to extort a miserable $50,000 from her, losing everything in the process. Grace dropped the documents on the table with a thud. "The $50,000 you were willing to destroy our relationship for? To my father, that's the cost of a single-state dinner. To me, it's less than a weekend shopping trip. But I would never give you a single cent, because you are not worthy. Your greed is a bottomless pit." Brenda, finally understanding the magnitude of her mistake, began to babble. Miss Sterling, I didn't know. I'm just an old woman. Please forgive me." Grace looked at her with pure contempt. "Scared now, are you? A moment ago, you were so proud. You said your house was too good for me. Let me correct you. It is your family that is not good enough to enter my world. Your threshold is far too low for my character." She then turned to Jessica, who was trying to escape. "And you think you're so clever? You're nothing but a debt-ridden con artist. He thought he was trading up for a diamond but ended up with a piece of glass. You two deserve each other. Enjoy paying off your debts together." Grace took a deep breath and delivered her final verdict. "I, Grace Sterling, hereby officially call off my engagement to Kevin Miller. We owe each other nothing. Actually, you owe me an apology. But keep it. An apology from people with no integrity is worthless." With that, she took her father's arm and turned to leave. As they walked away, a desperate, primal scream erupted from Kevin. He had just lost a gold mine. "Grace, wait, don't go. I was wrong. My mother made me do it. Jessica tricked me. I still love you. Dad, please forgive your foolish son-in-law." He scrambled after them, trying to grab the governor's suit jacket. Before he could touch him, 2 of the security guards stepped in. One grabbed Kevin by the collar, lifted him off the ground as if he were a child, and threw him aside. Kevin landed in a heap in the dirt, his rented tuxedo ripping at the seam. "Stay back," the guard warned, his voice low and menacing. "Don't dirty the governor's suit." Kevin lay on the ground, watching the Rolls-Royce door close. Through the tinted window, he saw Grace's serene face as the car pulled away. She never once looked back. Tom, now sober, stared at his pathetic son, then at his catatonic wife. "My God!" he wailed. "We had a winning lottery ticket and we tore it up. Brenda, you fool, you've ruined us." Brenda finally broke down, sobbing not for her son, but for the lost fortune. A governor's daughter. Why didn't she say so? Why did she lie to me? All that money. The guests began to leave, shaking their heads, their whispers like daggers. Serves them right. Greed will be the death of them. Imagine trying to shake down a governor's daughter. What idiots. The party was over. But the nightmare for the Miller family had just begun. As the governor's convoy disappeared, a new set of vehicles screeched to a halt in front of the house. Several motorcycles carrying large, tattooed men. It was Tiffany's loan sharks. They had been watching all morning, and seeing the wedding fall apart, they knew they weren't getting their money. The leader, a bald man carrying a metal pipe, kicked the gate open. "Party's over. Where's our money? Don't tell me the deal went south." Tiffany screamed and ran inside, locking herself in her room. The shock was too much for Brenda. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Tom rushed to his wife, screaming for help. The loan sharks stormed the yard, kicking over tables and smashing chairs. "Playing dead? No money? No house? Where's Kevin? You're the big brother. You pay her debt." Kevin, pale and trembling, emptied his pockets. He had nothing. "Please, give us a few days." "A few days? You promised us cash today." "You think you can scam us?" the leader roared. "Trash the place." His men went on a rampage, smashing windows and breaking furniture. The neighbors watched, but no one intervened. No one wanted to help a family that had shown such ugly character. Kevin knelt in the wreckage, his head in his hands. It was all gone. His career, his love, his dignity, and now his home. An ambulance arrived to take Brenda to the hospital. Tom scrambled in after her, leaving Kevin to face the ruins alone. After the thugs left, promising to return, Kevin sat amidst the broken glass and shattered dreams. He remembered Grace's kindness, her patience, her quiet strength, all the things he had mistaken for weakness. The price of greed was absolute, and he would be paying it for the rest of his life. Rain began to fall, cold and hard, washing over the cheap, broken decorations, but unable to cleanse the stain of his family's character. Kevin stumbled out of the wrecked house, a final, desperate hope flickering in his mind. Jessica. She was rich. She was connected. Surely, she wouldn't abandon him now. He took a cab to the luxury apartment building where Jessica had told him she lived. The doorman, seeing his disheveled state, was reluctant, but eventually called up. When the door to the penthouse opened, it wasn't the glamorous woman he knew. It was a pale, tired-looking Jessica in a wrinkled nightgown. The apartment behind her was a mess of boxes and takeout containers. "Jessica," he pleaded, "I'm in trouble. The loan sharks destroyed my house. Can you lend me $20,000? I'll do anything to pay you back." Jessica laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Are you insane? 20,000? I can't even make rent this month." Kevin was dumbfounded. "But this apartment, your car, the designer bags, all rented, you idiot," she snapped. "It was all a front to snag a rich fool. I thought that was you, but it turns out you're just as broke as I am. Now get out of my way, I'm packing. I have creditors of my own to run from." Just then, a burly, tattooed man appeared behind her. "This guy bothering you, babe?" Kevin backed away in fear as Jessica slammed the door in his face. It was all a lie. He had thrown away a diamond for a piece of cubic zirconia. The next day, he dragged himself to work, his last hope. But as he walked in, he was met with whispers and averted gazes. The news of the disastrous engagement party and his family's disgrace had gone viral online. He was immediately summoned to his boss's office. "Kevin," his boss said, sliding a termination letter across the desk, "the company is letting you go, effective immediately. Your actions have brought shame upon this firm. Several of our key clients have threatened to pull their accounts. They don't want to be associated with you. And frankly, I can't afford to anger Governor Sterling. Clean out your desk." Kevin walked out in a daze, carrying his life in a small cardboard box. His career was over. That evening, a major cultural exhibition opened at the Charleston Historical Society. It was curated by Grace. The event, showcasing rare manuscripts she had personally restored, was a triumph. She stood at the podium, elegant in a sea-green silk dress, looking radiant. Governor Sterling watched from the back, his face beaming with pride. "The value of a person, like a book," Grace said to the applauding audience, "is not in its tattered cover, but in the content within. I hope we all learn to look past the surface, to appreciate true substance, lest we discard life's greatest treasures." In a greasy diner across town, Kevin watched the news report on his cracked phone screen. He was in a dirty work uniform, having spent the day doing manual labor. He saw Grace, poised and brilliant, and a wave of regret so powerful it made him sick washed over him. He had once held that treasure in his hands, and he had thrown it away for nothing. The Miller family's house was eventually sold to pay off the last of their debts. Brenda was left partially paralyzed from the stroke, spending her days mumbling about the fortune she had lost. Tiffany worked long, miserable hours at a textile factory. The family, consumed by bitterness and recrimination, fell apart. 2 years later, Kevin was working as a low-level property scout, hustling for tiny commissions, constantly humiliated by clients. One rainy afternoon, he saw a young couple on a scooter, laughing as the girl hugged the boy from behind. It was a mirror image of him and Grace in their early, happy days. The memory was a physical pain. He had traded that simple, genuine happiness for a fantasy of wealth and status, and in the end, had lost everything. Meanwhile, in her quiet study filled with the scent of old paper and incense, Grace was at peace. She had poured her energy into her passion, establishing a foundation for cultural preservation. She was happy, fulfilled, and free. Her father came in with a cup of tea. "Arthur mentioned he saw Kevin the other day," he said gently. "He's not doing well." Grace smiled, a serene, untroubled expression on her face. "That part of my life is over, Dad. Everyone makes their own choices and lives with the consequences. I don't hate them, but I can't pity them either. Forgetting is the greatest respect I can give to myself and the beautiful life I have now." The rain had stopped, and a ray of sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the restored pages of an ancient book on her desk. Like the new shoots in her garden after a storm, Grace had weathered her own tempest and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the sunshine.